wanted to discuss one other football game that took place. The Las Vegas Raiders and the Indianapolis Colts. The Raiders went into Lucas Oil Stadium and knocked off a really good Indianapolis Colts team 23-20 on the road. This was probably one of the most improbable wins, and the Raiders have probably been one of the most improbable stories of the entire season. I don't know if there is a more embattled franchise than the Las Vegas Raiders. When you think about what this team and what this franchise has had to endure, it has had to overcome. I mean, it has been one huge PR nightmare. They could not avert crisis if they tried. Everything that could be dumped onto them and onto this franchise has. In one season, not even in a whole year, over the course of 3 or 4 months. They could not avert crisis at all. When you think back to the John Gruden fiasco and all the racist, derogatory, and misogynistic emails, to the fatal car crash with Henry Ruggs and the fact that he was accused of involuntary vehicular manslaughter, and then Damon Arnett, a video of him surfacing where he's brandishing firearms and he's making death threats. And yet, despite all of that chaos and all of that turbulence, they've been able to fly safely and safely land the plane and simply find ways to win. I mean, they have had every reason in the books to bail on the season, to pack it in. And you know what? We as the fans and as the media, even the NFL, we would excuse it because it would be justified. Normally, you have expectations of teams. If they come up short, we find reasons to scold and ridicule them. No one was going to do that for the Raiders this year, because as much as we want to judge, or as much as we wanted to judge Carr and to judge the entire cast of characters, it was impossible to do so given, again, all the craziness that was engulfing this team. So we had no expectations of the Raiders. All these incidents, we kind of felt like they became irrelevant. We didn't really talk about them. They were discounted. And we just overlooked every single game that they played and moved on to the opponent and said, okay, this is the next relevant team in the AFC. And the reality is, to this team's credit, I mean, again, every act that they did was marred by the acts that preceded it. And yet, to the credit of Derek Carr, he has managed to lead this team through all the pitfalls to a 9-7 record and being competitive in more games than that. And they've won 3 straight games. I mean, the Las Vegas Raiders epitomized mediocrity the past several years. 2019, they started out 6-4 over their last 10 games. They lost 5 of their last 6. Then in 2020, last year, they started 6-3. Off to a great start. They go 2-5 to end the season and to miss the postseason. And even this year, they were following a similar trajectory. They won their first 3 games. They were 3-0, and they went 5-3. Good start. Then they lost 5 of their next 6 games, and now they've won 3 straight. And they have simply found ways to just overcome and find ways to win in manners that just seem impossible. It's almost short of, I don't think it'd be an exaggeration to say that it's been short of a miracle and a bit short of miraculous what they've been able to overcome. I truly don't think that I've ever seen a team have to traverse this many trials and tribulations in the same season and still actually be in contention for a playoff berth. And listen, I have to give credit to Rich Bisaccia too, the head coach. The fact that he's kept this team focused, locked in, and ready to compete week in and week out. And as I mentioned, they've had all the excuses in the world to simply play poorly. They've never opted for that route. They've never opted to do that. And they weren't better than the Indianapolis Colts yesterday. They're not a better team than the Colts. But this isn't about the Colts. I mean, there's no question Carson Wentz missed a couple key third down throws. They were 9-0 when Jonathan Taylor rushed for over 100 yards this year. This was the first time that they lost a game when he ran for over 100 yards, which he did for the 10th time this year. They lost because Carson Wentz didn't play up to expectations. He missed a couple key throws, especially on that potential game-winning drive when they had to settle for a field goal. That should have been a touchdown that probably should have won the game. But again, this isn't about the Colts. This is about the Las Vegas Raiders against all odds simply eking out a win, finding ways to win. And they've got some really talented players. Their defense has stepped up, led by Max Crosby. Carl Nassib has been playing well again. Jonathan Abrams. They've got some players. And then offensively, Hunter Renfrow has turned into a really nice wide receiver and a really good wide receiver. Josh Jacobs, I really like, the running back out of Alabama. But Derek Carr is having a really underrated season again. And he is showing just why he is a great leader. Because, again, for I still don't understand how he's been able to keep his composure, how he's been able to stay focused and locked in. This guy is one of the most mentally tough quarterbacks in the NFL. He truly is. And I think more importantly, this game was a microcosm of the Las Vegas Raiders' entire season, which is showing a lot of potential and a lot of promise and success early on in the year and early on in the game. They led 13-3. Then the middle of the season, they kind of faltered and they kind of started to spiral, not only in the game, but in this season. Again, they lost 5 of their 6 games in the middle of the year. But then they turned it around and they executed late down the stretch, which was the case yesterday. So, listen, they haven't clinched a playoff berth just yet. They still obviously have a huge game against the Chargers at home on Sunday Night Football next week that will determine probably the rest of the AFC postseason standings. I'm not sure if both of those teams can still make it. It probably depends on the outcomes of some other games. But regardless of what happens next week, it's extremely commendable what the Raiders have done. And really nothing short of spectacular and miraculous, because no one could have seen this coming, and especially given the hand that they'd been dealt, to still win in Vegas, where the odds are never in your favor and the house normally wins, the Raiders have been winning. The Raiders have been winning.